Orbicularis oris. Origin. Complex cord at the corner of the mouth. Insertion. Lips. Orbicularis oculum. Medial orbit is the origin. Insertion. Eyelids. Frontalis. Origin. Sheath of fibrous tissue over the top of the skull called the epicranial aponeurosis. Insertion. Skin of the forehead. Occipitalis. Origin. Temporal bone. Insertion. Epicranial aponeurosis. Temporalis. Origin. Temporal bone. Insertion. Mandible. Buccinator. Origin. Maxilla and mandible. Insertion. Orbicularis oris. Masseter. Origin. Zygomatic arch. Insertion. Mandible. Platysma. Fascia of the deltoid and pectoralis major muscles. Insertion. Mandible. Sternocleidomastoid. Manubrium of the sternum and medial portion of the clavicle. Insertion. Mastoid process of the temporal bone.
So the deltoid is the clavicle and scapula. Biceps brachii is the scapula. Triceps brachii is the humerus and scapula. Brachialis is the humerus, and the brachii radialis is the humerus.
Extensor carpi radialis and the extensor carpi ulnarius both have origins in the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Their insertions are in the metacarpals and complex and extend in the ducts. Palmaris longus and the flexor carpi radialis and flexor carpi ulnaris both have origins in the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Their insertions, the palmar aponeurosis, metacarpals, flexus wrist and abducts the wrist. Digitorum. Its origin is the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Insertion, posterior phalanges, extends the fingers. The flexor digitorum, its origin is the ulna. Insertion, phalanges, and it flexes the fingers.
The gastrocnemius, the origin is the femur and the insertion is the calcaneus. Soleus has an origin at the fibula and tibia. The insertion is at the calcaneus. Peroneus or fibularis has an origin at the fibula and an insertion at the metatarsal. And the tibialis anterior has an origin at the tibia and insertion at the metatarsal.
Tentrofasciolate is the origin is the ilium and the insertion is the tibia. And don't forget, Miss Karst, a moment on the lips is a lifetime on the hips. Gracilis, the origin is pubis and the insertion is tibia. The ductus longus, the origin is pubis and the insertion is the femur. Pectineus, the origin is the pubis and the insertion is the femur. The iliacus, the origin is the ilium and the insertion is the lesser truncator of femur. The iliopopsoas is the origin of ilium and vertebrae and is lesser truncator of femur. The psoas major has an origin of vertebrae and the insertion is a lesser truncator of femur. The sartorius has an origin of the ilium and insertion of the tibia. Rectus femoris has an origin of the ilium and insertion of the tibial tuberosity. The vastus lateralis has a greater truncator of femur and the insertion of the tibial tuberosity. A vastus medialis has an origin of the femur and insertion of the tuberosity, as well as the vastus intermedius, which has origin of the femur and insertion of the tibial tuberosity. Biceps femoris has origin of the ischium and the insertion of the fibula. The semitendinosus has the origin of the ischium and the insertion of the tibia, and the semimembranosus has the origin of the ischium and insertion of the tibia.